The first thing I heard was laughter. Not the harmless kind that spills out when somebody drops a melon or says something ridiculous in the cereal aisle. This was sharp, mean, the kind of laughter that looks for a person's weakest place and presses a thumb into it. I was standing near the apples with a bag of Honey Crisps in one hand, trying to decide whether $6 a pound was a crime or just inflation with better lighting, when I saw Mara at the self-checkout. And then I saw the three teenagers behind her. One of them had his phone up. That was the part that made my chest go cold. My name is Caleb Warren. I was 27 then, old enough to know better than to get into public scenes, young enough to still believe sometimes a public scene is exactly what a person deserves. I worked as a carpenter for a small renovation company in Maple Falls, Ohio, which meant I spent most of my days fixing crooked cabinets, arguing with old pipes, and trying not to fall in love with a woman I only saw on Thursday evenings at Brantley's Market. Mara Ellis was 25, worked the customer service desk at the same grocery store, and had vitiligo across her hands, neck, and one side of her face like God had painted her twice and couldn't decide which version was more beautiful. I had noticed her months before for the worst possible reason. Not because of her skin. Because she caught me talking to a cantaloupe. In my defense, the cantaloupe had no business being that soft. "You negotiating with produce again?" she'd asked, leaning on the customer service counter with one eyebrow raised. I looked up and almost dropped it. Mara had dark curls pinned loosely under a green store apron, warm brown eyes, and a pale patch curved along her cheekbone like moonlight had landed there and decided to stay. "I'm checking structural integrity," I said. "It's fruit, Caleb. I build decks. Everything is structural to me." She smiled at that, not politely, fully, like I'd earned it. After that, Thursday grocery trips became less about groceries and more about whether Mara was working. I learned she liked black coffee, hated scented candles that smelled like desserts, kept peppermint gum in her apron pocket, and could make an old man stop complaining about expired coupons with nothing but patience and one deadly sentence. "Mr. Duffy, we both know you enjoy arguing with me." She was funny, sharp, gentle when it mattered. The kind of woman who remembered that my mother liked the low-sodium chicken broth after her heart scare and would point at aisle 4 before I even asked. And I was hopeless, not in a dramatic way. I wasn't writing poems or staring at the moon. I was just a grown man buying bananas twice a week because I hadn't figured out how to ask the most beautiful woman in town to have dinner with me. That Thursday, I had almost done it. Almost. I'd walked in wearing a clean shirt, which for me meant no sawdust and only one questionable stain near the cuff. Mara was arranging returns in a cart by the front doors. When she saw me, she tilted her head. "Well, look at you," she said. "No work boots tracking drywall dust through my store." Should I be worried? Maybe I'm evolving. Into what? A responsible adult. She looked me up and down slowly, and I swear the fluorescent lights got warmer. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," she said. I laughed, but my courage did something strange then. It stepped forward before I could grab it. "I was thinking," I said, "if responsible adulthood continues, maybe I could take you to dinner sometime." Mara's hand paused on a box of cereal. For one second, her face did not give me anything. Then her mouth curved, but not quite into a smile. "Dinner?" she asked. "Unless you have a strict policy against eating with men who inspect cantaloupe professionally." "That depends," she said, eyes flicking to mine. "Would this be a dinner where you explain wood grain to me for 45 minutes? I could keep it to 30. Generous. 20 if you wear that look again." "What look?" "The one where you pretend you're not amused." Her cheeks warmed. I noticed because one of the pale patches near her jaw made the blush look like sunrise under snow. Then the automatic doors opened. A customer called her name. And the moment snapped. "I get off at 7, she said quickly, almost too quietly. My heart did an embarrassing little jump. "Is that a yes?" "It's a maybe," she said, walking backward toward the service desk. "But it's a good maybe." "A good maybe?" I carried those 3 words through the store like a man entrusted with national treasure. I was in the produce section 20 minutes later when the laughter started. Mara had been moved to help at self-checkout because the front lanes were backed up. She stood beside an older woman helping her scan coupons, her hands moving with quick competence over the screen. The teenagers were maybe 16 or 17, two boys and a girl. Hoodies, sneakers, too much confidence. The tallest boy pointed his phone at Mara, not openly at first, but with that sly angle people use when they know they're doing something ugly and want the internet to applaud. "Bro, I'm telling you," he said loudly, "it looks like someone spilled bleach on her." The girl snorted. The second boy whispered something I couldn't hear, then made a mooing sound under his breath. Mara's hand froze over the scanner. The old woman beside her looked confused. A mother with a toddler glanced over, then quickly looked away. That was the worst part sometimes. Not cruelty, but the quiet permission people give it by suddenly becoming interested in their shoes. Mara straightened. "Can I help you scan something?" she asked the teenagers, voice calm enough to make my throat ache. The tall boy grinned at his phone. "Nah, we're good, just admiring the pattern." I took one step, then another, but before I could reach them, Mara looked right at me. Not pleading, warning, don't. That one look said everything. Don't make it worse. Don't make me the center of a rescue. Don't turn my face into a debate. And that stopped me harder than any hand on my chest could have, because Mara was not helpless. She had probably survived more rooms than I knew. She had built a kind of grace people mistook for permission. And I realized if I stormed in swinging anger around, I might make myself feel righteous while making her feel smaller. So I did the only thing I could think of. I picked up my basket, walked to the self-checkout beside her, and began scanning the most random collection of groceries ever assembled by a nervous man in love. Apples, toothpaste, coffee filters, a jar of pickles I did not remember choosing. Mara glanced at me from the corner of her eye. "You buying dinner or surviving a power outage?" she murmured. "Depends how the pickles behave." Her mouth twitched. That tiny, almost smile felt like being handed a match in the dark. The teenagers kept laughing. "Yo, get her in the background," the girl said. "People are going to lose it." Something in Mara's face changed then. Not big, not theatrical, but her shoulders drew in half an inch, like the whole store had gotten colder. I scanned the coffee filters twice by accident. "Unexpected item in bagging area," the machine barked. Mara reached across me to fix it, her hand brushing mine. For one small second, our fingers touched. It should not have mattered. It was nothing. Bare skin against bare skin, warm and brief. But I felt the tremble in her hand before she pulled away, and when I looked at her, the brave mask slipped just enough for me to see the woman underneath it. Tired, embarrassed, angry, beautiful. "Caleb," she whispered, "please don't." I leaned closer, keeping my voice low. "I'm not going to humiliate you." Her eyes searched mine. "No speeches? No speeches. No fighting teenage boys in aisle 2? I'd lose. My knees are older than my birth certificate." A laugh escaped her before she could stop it. Soft, shaky, real. Then the tall boy said, louder, "Hey, Patchwork, you got a filter for that?" The store went quiet. Even the self-checkout machine seemed to pause. Mara closed her eyes, and I knew, with the clearest certainty I had ever felt, that if I walked away with my apples and my good maybe, I would hate myself every Thursday for the rest of my life. So I turned, not to the teenagers first, but to Mara. "Do you trust me?" I asked. Her lips parted. "Caleb." "Not to rescue you," I said. "To stand with you." That landed differently. Her eyes shone, but her chin lifted. Then, slowly, she nodded. I set my basket down, walked past the teenagers, and went straight to the customer service counter where the store microphone sat, beside the returns bin. Mara's manager, a tired woman named Janice, looked up at me like I had lost my mind. Maybe I had. I picked up the microphone. The speaker crackled through every aisle in Brantley's Market. And when Mara saw what I was about to do, her hand flew to her mouth. There are moments in a man's life when he becomes painfully aware that he has no plan. This was one of mine. The microphone was in my hand. The whole grocery store was listening. Janice, the manager, looked ready to tackle me into a display of reusable bags. Mara stood frozen by self-checkout, cheeks flushed, eyes wide. And the teenagers were still laughing. I pressed the button. "Attention Brantley's shoppers," I said. my voice booming over the speakers and coming back to me from every aisle. "This is Caleb Warren. I'm not an employee. That will probably become obvious in about 5 seconds." A few heads turned. Someone near the bakery giggled. Janice mouthed, "What are you doing?" I mouthed back, "Sorry." Then I looked at Mara. She was shaking her head, but not in anger. More like she couldn't believe I was real, standing there with a store microphone and absolutely no professional qualifications. I took a breath. "I need to make an announcement," I said. "There is a woman working self-checkout tonight named Mara Ellis." The teenagers went still. Mara's eyes filled instantly. I almost stopped. I almost set the microphone down and apologized. But then her hand lowered from her mouth and she gave me one tiny nod. "Stand with me." So I did. "Mara knows where everything is in this store," I continued. "She knows Mr. Duffy pretends his coupons aren't expired. She knows my mother needs low-sodium broth. She knows the bakery puts the good cinnamon rolls out around 6:30. Someone in aisle 3 called, "That's true!" A soft wave of laughter moved through the store. Mara once helped a little boy find his lost stuffed dinosaur and treated it like a missing person investigation. She once stayed 20 minutes after her shift because Mrs. Alvarez couldn't read the small print on a medicine label. And last month, when I bought a cantaloupe that could have been used as a weapon, she stopped me from making a terrible life choice. More laughter, warmer now. Mara covered her face with both hands, but I could see her shoulders shaking. I hoped she was laughing. I prayed she was laughing. "And yes," I said, quieter, though the speakers carried every word, "Mara has vitiligo, which means parts of her skin lost pigment. That's it. That's the whole thing. It doesn't make her a joke. It doesn't make her a video. It doesn't make her less beautiful." The store went completely silent. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. I looked straight at the teenagers then. "It makes anybody who mocks her look small." The tall boy lowered his phone. "And since I've already ruined my chance at shopping here unnoticed ever again," I said, turning back toward Mara, "I may as well finish strong." Mara's eyes locked on mine. "Mara," I said into the microphone, "I asked you earlier if I could take you to dinner. You said maybe." A murmur moved through the store. Her expression changed from teary to horrified so fast I nearly laughed. I lifted one hand. "No pressure, truly. Public embarrassment is not a dating strategy I recommend." That got another laugh. "But I want you to know my answer to your maybe is this. I would be honored. Not because I feel sorry for you, not because I want to prove a point. Because you make me buy produce I don't need just to hear you insult my judgment. Because when you smile, I forget what I came in for. Because I like who I am when I'm talking to you." The tears spilled over then. Not just hers. Mrs. Alvarez near the pharmacy was wiping her eyes with a receipt. Janice had stopped looking murderous and started dabbing at her face with a napkin from the coffee station. I swallowed hard. "So, shoppers, please continue buying your groceries. Teenagers, please delete the video. And Mara?" My voice cracked like a cheap board under too much weight. "Your maybe is safe with me. Take all the time you need." I set the microphone down. For 1 second, no one moved. Then someone clapped. It was the old woman at self-checkout. Then Mr. Duffy from aisle 4. Then a cashier. Then half the store until Brantley's Market. Sounded less like a grocery store and more like the end of a small-town concert. The teenagers looked like they wanted the floor to open. The girl mumbled, "Sorry," so quietly it almost disappeared, but Mara heard it. She nodded once, not offering comfort she didn't owe. Janice marched over to them and held out her hand. "Phone," she said. The tall boy hesitated. Janice smiled the smile of a woman who had survived inventory audits and Christmas Eve shifts. "I was not asking." He deleted the video while the whole front end watched. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt suddenly terrified. Because Mara was walking toward me. Slowly, with purpose. And I had no microphone to hide behind. She stopped so close I could smell peppermint gum and the faint citrus scent of the hand soap from the employee restroom. Her eyes were wet. Her mouth trembled once before she pressed it firm. "You," she said, pointing at my chest, "are a menace. I've been told." That was embarrassing. I know. Unhinged. Also accurate. Possibly illegal. I didn't see a sign. She stared at me. Then she laughed through her tears and shoved me lightly with both hands. I caught her wrists without thinking, gentle, just to steady her. The pale patches across her fingers rested against my palms. She looked down at our hands, then back up at me. The entire store seemed to fade. I didn't need a hero, she whispered. I know. Her voice softened. But I did need someone not to look away. My throat tightened. I can do that. You sure? Because apparently when you don't look away, you commandeer sound equipment. I'll work on moderation. No, you won't. No, I admitted. Probably not. Her thumbs shifted against my palms, not pulling away. Choosing to stay. Then Mara did something that changed the shape of my whole life. She stepped closer. Not much. Just enough that our joined hands were caught between us, just enough that I could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes. 7:30, she said. I blinked. What? Dinner. I get off at 7. I'll need half an hour to stop crying and fix my face. You don't have to fix anything. Her gaze sharpened, but there was warmth behind it. Careful, Warren. Too sweet, and I'll think you practiced. I did not practice. Clearly. She smiled. 7:30. But I choose the place. Anywhere. And you are not allowed to make announcements. Not even if the soup is excellent. Especially not then. I wanted to kiss her. The thought hit me so hard I nearly forgot where we were. Her face was tilted up toward mine, her fingers still in my hands, the applause fading around us into little whispers and sniffles. I saw the same thought flicker across her face, quick and bright and dangerous. But she was at work. In public. Already exposed enough. So I lifted her hands instead and pressed one careful kiss to her knuckles. Her breath caught. The store made a collective sound like 50 people trying very hard not to be nosy and failing. Mara looked at our hands, then at me. That, she said softly, was acceptable. Only acceptable? For a first attempt. I accept the challenge. Her smile turned real then. Full, unguarded, devastating. Janice cleared her throat behind us. Mara, take your break. Mara didn't look away from me. I'm not due for 10 minutes. You're due now, Janice said. And Caleb, if you steal my microphone again, I'll ban you from produce. Understood. Mara finally pulled her hands from mine, but only to grab my sleeve and tug me toward the little cafe corner by the front windows. It wasn't dinner, it wasn't even close. It was 2 paper cups of burnt grocery store coffee at a sticky table beside a rack of discount greeting cards. But when Mara sat across from me, knees brushing mine under the table, eyes still damp and smiling, it felt like the beginning of every love story I had never been brave enough to want. Mara stirred her coffee with a wooden stick and didn't drink it. This tastes like regret, she said. You haven't even tried it. I can smell emotional damage. I took a sip of mine and immediately burned every opinion off my tongue. It's bold. It's brewed by a machine Janice calls the lawsuit. That explains the aftertaste. She laughed, and the sound loosened something in me. 10 minutes earlier, I had been prepared for her to tell me I'd gone too far, that I'd made a private wound public, that my good intentions had landed like a brick. Instead, she was sitting across from me in the grocery cafe, one foot hooked around the leg of my chair like she'd accidentally tethered us together. Or maybe not accidentally. Her eyes dropped to my mouth. You okay? Me? You look like you're trying to taste colors. My tongue may never forgive me. Good. Consequences build character. I smiled. You always this merciful? Only with men who announce their feelings over store speakers. My face warmed. About that. Her expression softened, and she set the stir stick down. Caleb, I meant every word. I know. Her voice was quiet now. That's the problem. I went still. Outside the front windows, evening had turned the parking lot gold. Cars rolled past. A man wrestled a cart with one bad wheel. Life kept moving around us, ordinary and unaware that I was sitting 3 feet from the woman who could wreck me with one sentence. Mara wrapped both hands around her paper cup. The pale patches across her fingers looked almost luminous against the brown cardboard sleeve. "People say things," she said, "mostly when they think I can't hear. Sometimes when they want me to. I've had grown women ask if it's contagious. Kids stare, but kids are honest, so that's different. Men?" She gave a small shrug. "Men either pretend not to notice or make it a whole speech about how they're open-minded." I winced. "That sounds awful." "It's boring mostly." She looked at me then. "But when you said I was beautiful, you didn't say it like you were trying to win a medal for it." My chest tightened. "I wasn't." "I know," she whispered. I wanted to reach across the table. I didn't. Not yet. Mara traced the rim of her cup. "Can I tell you something ugly?" "Anything." "When it started spreading on my face, I stopped going on dates." "How long ago?" 3 years. I forgot how to breathe normally. She lifted one shoulder, pretending it didn't matter. I told myself I was busy. Work, my aunt, bills, and all that was true. But really, I got tired of watching men decide whether they could handle being seen with me. I pushed my coffee aside. "Mara." "No, let me say it." Her eyes shone again, but her chin stayed up. "Today, when those kids laughed, I hated that my first thought wasn't even anger. It was, of course. Like some part of me expected the world to remind me. I couldn't sit there anymore." Slowly, giving her every chance to pull back, I reached across the small table and offered my hand. She looked at it for a moment. Then she placed her hand in mine. Her skin was warm. Her fingers curled around mine, careful at first, then sure. "I don't want to be handled," she said. "I don't want to handle you." "Or managed." "No." "Or turned into your noble act of kindness." "That's not what this is." "What is it then?" There it was. The question under everything. I held her gaze. "It's me wanting to know if you take cream in coffee when it isn't made by a lawsuit machine. It's me wanting to learn why you hate dessert candles with such passion. It's me wondering what you look like on a Sunday morning when nobody needs anything from you." My voice lowered. "It's me wanting you, Mara. Not an idea. Not a cause. You." Her fingers tightened around mine. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she blinked fast and said, "I hate dessert candles because rooms should not smell like lies." A laugh burst out of me, half relief, half affection. "That's your response?" If I respond to the rest right now, I might cry again, and Janice has already used too many napkins on me today. You're allowed to cry. I'm also allowed to deflect with candle opinions. Fair. Her thumb moved once over my knuckle. Small. Deliberate. "Caleb?" "Yeah?" "I want you to." Everything in me went quiet. She smiled, shy for the first time since I'd known her. Not because of the microphone, though horrifyingly that helped. "I'll add public emotional risk to my dating profile." "Please don't have a dating profile." "I don't." "Good." That single word felt dangerously like a claim. Janice appeared near the cafe entrance and checked her watch. "Mara, 2 minutes." Mara sighed. "Romance is hard under fluorescent lighting." "I was doing pretty well." "You were," she admitted, standing. I stood too. We were close again, closer than before, between the little table and the greeting cards that said things like, "Best grandpa ever in glitter." She glanced toward the registers, then back at me. 7:30, there's a little Italian place on Birch Street. Bellafiore. "I know it. Don't be late." "I'll be early." "Don't be too early, that's suspicious." "What's the acceptable amount of early?" 7 minutes. Very specific. I have standards. I like that about you. Her smile faltered into something tender. Then, before I could overthink it, she rose on her toes and kissed my cheek. It was quick. Soft. A brush of warmth near the corner of my mouth. But when she stepped back, her confidence wavered just enough that I understood what it had cost her. Not the kiss, the choosing. "I'll see you tonight," she said. I touched the spot on my cheek like an idiot. "Yeah." She tilted her head. "You okay?" No, I think I've been mortally kissed. There's no cure. I accept my fate. She laughed and walked back to work, but at the edge of the cafe, she turned around and smiled at me like she knew exactly what she'd done. I spent the next 2 hours in a state that could only be described as useless. I went home, showered, changed shirts 3 times, then called my sister Naomi because she had known me since I ate glue in kindergarten and could be trusted with emergencies. I have a date, I said when she answered. With a human woman? Why is that your first question? Because last month you said your table saw had a personality. This is serious. She went quiet just long enough to scare me. Is it the grocery store woman? I frowned at the mirror. How do you know about Mara? Caleb, you once described her laugh as sunlight with opinions. I'm not a detective. I said that out loud? Unfortunately. By 7:23, I was parked outside Bellafiore, gripping the steering wheel and reminding myself not to be weird. At 7:30 exactly, Mara walked up the sidewalk in a navy dress and a denim jacket, curls loose around her shoulders. My heart forgot every safety code I'd ever learned. She saw me through the windshield and pointed at her watch. I got out fast. I was 7 minutes early. Good. Trainable. You look. I stopped because beautiful felt too small and anything larger felt likely to make me sound like a greeting card. Her smile turned nervous. I look what? I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. Like I'm very lucky. The nervousness melted. Mara reached for my hand first. Come on, Caleb, she said. Let's see if you can survive dinner without a microphone. I laced my fingers through hers. No promises, I said. But when she laughed and squeezed my hand, I knew I would have promised her anything. Bellafiore was the kind of restaurant with candles on the tables and menus that used words like reduction. I immediately felt underqualified. Mara noticed. You're making the face, she said as the hostess led us to a corner booth. What face? The one men make when pasta costs more than plywood. I respect pasta. I just didn't know it had financing options. She laughed and slid into the booth. Relax, their portions are huge. Also, I have a coupon. You brought a coupon on our first date? I work in a grocery store. Coupons are my love language. I sat across from her. Then I intend to become fluent. Her eyes softened over the top of the menu. For a second, the clatter of silverware and low murmur of other tables blurred into the background. She had changed out of her green apron, but she still looked like Mara. Warm, alert, a little guarded. As if some part of her was waiting for the world to misbehave. I wanted to be gentle with that part. I also wanted to make her laugh until she forgot it existed. So when the waiter came by and asked if we wanted wine, I looked at Mara and said, I should warn you, one glass and I start explaining load-bearing walls. She folded her hands. Bring the wine. The waiter grinned. Red or white? Whatever pairs with carpentry trauma, she said. By the time our food came, I knew Mara's aunt had raised her after her mother died. I knew she had once wanted to become a nurse until medical bills and life rearranged the dream. I knew she loved old jazz records, hated being called brave by strangers, and had a scar on her knee from falling out of a cherry tree when she was 9. What were you doing in a cherry tree? I asked. Stealing cherries. Criminal history, good to know. I was an ambitious child. You still are. She twirled pasta around her fork, but her smile dimmed a little. Not as much as I used to be. I leaned back. What does that mean? For once, she didn't deflect. It means I got practical. She looked down at her plate. You do that when you're responsible for someone else. My aunt's arthritis got bad. Bills piled up. Dreams started feeling decorative. Dreams aren't decorative. No. No, they're structural. She raised an eyebrow. There it is. I warned you. Her mouth curved, but her eyes stayed serious. What about you? You always want to be a carpenter? I shrugged. My dad taught me. He was better than me. Was? He died when I was 20. I hadn't meant to say it so plainly, but there it was between the bread basket and the candle. Job site accident. Mara's face changed. Not pity. Attention. I'm sorry, she said. Me too. I took a breath. After that, I kept working because it was the only place I could still hear him. Hammer sounds, sawdust, him yelling at me to measure twice because I was apparently born reckless. Apparently. I stole a grocery store microphone today. Fair point. Her hand crossed the table and found mine. It was so natural that neither of us made a show of it. Her fingers slid between mine beside the candle, and something in my chest unknotted. I think he'd be proud of you, she said. I looked at our hands instead of her face because my throat had gone tight. He'd tell me my speech needed editing. It did. Wow. But he'd be proud. I laughed softly, then brushed my thumb over the back of her hand. What would your mom say about you going to dinner with a produce critic? Mara's smile trembled. She'd ask if you were kind, she said. Then she'd pretend not to watch us from the kitchen. And what would you tell her? Mara looked at me for a long moment. I'd tell her I'm still finding out. That should have scared me. Instead, it felt honest enough to build on. After dinner, I insisted on paying. Mara insisted on using the coupon. We compromised in a way that involved her coupon, my card, and a heated debate over tiramisu. Outside, the July air was warm and soft. Streetlights glowed along Birch Street. Bellafiore's front window reflected us standing close on the sidewalk, like a couple in a scene neither of us trusted yet. Mara slipped her denim jacket on, and I reached to help without thinking. My fingers brushed the ends of her curls. She went still. Sorry, I said. Don't be. Her voice was quiet. I let my hands rest lightly on her shoulders for half a second before stepping around to face her. We were under the restaurant awning, close enough that I could see the tiny fleck of sauce at the corner of her mouth. I smiled. What? She asked. You have evidence. Where? I touched my own mouth to show her. She wiped the wrong side. Nope. Here? Still no. She narrowed her eyes. Are you using marinara as a flirting technique? I would never exploit pasta. Liar. I reached slowly, giving her time to move away, and brushed the sauce from the corner of her lips with my thumb. Her breath caught. My hand lingered by her cheek. Not on the vitiligo, not avoiding it either. Just her face, warm beneath the night air, her eyes searching mine like she was trying to decide whether to trust the softness. I want to kiss you, I said. The words came out rough. Mara's gaze dropped to my mouth. You ask? Always. Her expression shifted, tender and teasing all at once. What if I said I wanted to kiss you first? I'd try to survive. She stepped closer, rose on her toes, and pressed her mouth to mine. It was gentle at first, a question. Then my hand slid to her waist, hers curled around the front of my shirt, and the kiss deepened into an answer. No applause, no microphone, no store full of witnesses. Just Mara choosing me under a striped awning, tasting like red wine and tiramisu, holding on like she had decided, at least for that moment, not to be afraid. When we separated, she stayed close, forehead nearly touching mine. Well? She whispered. I'm deceased. She laughed against my chin. Dramatic. You kissed me in public. I may need medical attention. Her fingers relaxed against my shirt, but she didn't let go. I was scared too. I know. I'm still scared. I know that too. She looked up. Does that bother you? No. I brushed a curl back from her cheek. It makes me want to go slow enough that you never have to run to keep up. Her eyes filled, but this time she blinked the tears away with a smile. That was dangerously good. I have rare moments. Don't get cocky. Too late. We walked down Birch Street hand in hand. We didn't talk for a while. We didn't need to. Her thumb kept moving over mine, a small rhythm that felt like trust, learning how to breathe. Near the corner, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her smile faded. I stopped. What is it? She turned the screen toward me. A message from an unknown number. Saw you at Brantley's. That guy won't always be around to defend you. My blood cooled. Mara stared at the words, then locked the phone and slid it into her pocket. Probably one of those kids, she said, but her voice had gone flat. I can walk you home. She gave me a look. I lifted both hands. Not as a hero. As a man who would like 10 more minutes with you and can also identify suspicious shrubbery. Despite herself, she smiled. Fine, she said, but if you fight a bush, I'm leaving. Reasonable. We started walking again, slower now. The message hung between us, but I refused to let it take the whole night. Mara seemed to decide the same thing because 2 blocks later she leaned her shoulder into my arm. Caleb. Yeah? I'm glad you're here. I looked down at her. Me too. No announcement required. Growth. She squeezed my hand. At her apartment steps, she turned to me beneath the porch light. The pale patches on her face glowed softly, and I thought again that beautiful was too small a word. She touched my jaw. Come in for tea? My heart kicked. Tea? Just tea, she said, though her smile warmed. And maybe one more kiss, if you behave. I stepped closer. I can be very well behaved. She opened the door, looking back at me with a challenge in her eyes. Let's find out. Mara's apartment smelled like mint tea, lemon soap, and old books. It was small, warm, and unmistakably hers. Jazz records stacked beside a thrifted blue armchair. A quilt folded over the sofa. A windowsill crowded with herbs that looked healthier than any plant I had ever owned. You can stop looking terrified, she said, locking the door behind us. I'm not terrified. You're standing like you're about to meet a firing squad. I'm deciding where a respectful man stands during tea. Mara hung her jacket on a hook. A respectful man can sit on the sofa. And a very well-behaved man? She turned, eyes bright. He can sit close enough that I don't have to throw a pillow at him. I sat. She made tea in the kitchen, and I watched her move through the little space like she belonged to every inch of it. The threatening message still sat in the back of my mind, cold and ugly, but Mara was humming under her breath, and I made a choice right there not to let cruelty have the loudest voice in her home. When she came back, she handed me a mug that said, "Don't rush me." Is this a warning? I asked. It's a philosophy. I'll respect it. She sat beside me close enough that our knees touched. Will you? The question was softer than the joke. I set my mug on the coffee table. Yes. Mara studied me in the lamplight. Without the store lights, without the restaurant noise, she looked less guarded. Still brave, but tired of needing to be. I need to say something, she whispered. If this goes anywhere, there will be days I believe you and days I don't. About what? About wanting me. Her fingers tightened around her mug. About not being embarrassed. About not waking up one morning and deciding this is too much work. I wanted to rush in with promises, but her mug had already warned me. So I took my time. I can't fix 3 years of hurt in one night, I said. And I'm not going to pretend one speech and one dinner make me worthy of all your trust. Her eyes glistened. But I can show up tomorrow, I continued. And the day after. I can learn the days you need reassurance and the days you need jokes. I can stand beside you without turning you into a project. And when I tell you I want you, I'll mean all of you. Mara's lips parted. Then she set her tea down, moved closer, and climbed carefully into my lap. My whole body forgot how furniture worked. Still behaving, she murmured, trying very hard. She smiled, then framed my face with both hands. Good. Keep trying. This kiss was different. At the restaurant, she had asked a question. Here, in the quiet of her living room, she gave an answer. Her mouth moved over mine slowly, confidently, and when my arms wrapped around her waist, she relaxed like something inside her had finally put down a heavy bag. We kissed until the tea went cold. We kissed until the fear in the room became smaller than the space between our breaths. When she rested her forehead against mine, she whispered, I don't want you to leave yet. I won't. Just hold me. I pulled the quilt around us and held her on that blue sofa while a trumpet played softly from an old record player. Her cheek rested over my heart. My hand traced slow circles over her back. No announcement could have mattered more than that silence. The next morning, Mara reported the message to Janice, who called the teenager's parents and the school. It turned out the number belonged to one of the boys. His mother brought him to Brantley's in person, pale with embarrassment, and he apologized without a phone in his hand. Mara accepted the apology. She did not comfort him. I loved that about her before I admitted I loved anything. We kept dating. Carefully at first. Thursday groceries became Friday dinners, Sunday walks, lazy breakfasts where Mara stole my toast and claimed it was relationship tags. She met my sister Naomi, who hugged her too long and later told me, "Do not mess this up, or I'll change the locks on your life." Mara adored her. My mother adored Mara more. One afternoon, Mara came to one of my job sites with iced coffee. I was installing porch railings, sweaty and covered in sawdust, and she stood there in a yellow sundress, looking at me like I was something worth waiting for. "You're staring," I said. "I'm admiring structural integrity." I climbed down the steps, laughing. That's my line. I've evolved. When I kissed her in front of my crew, she didn't flinch. She kissed me back, one hand on my chest, bold and smiling. Afterward, she looked surprised by herself, then proud. That was the part that nearly undid me. By the following spring, Mara enrolled in evening classes for medical assisting. She said it was not nursing school yet, only a step. I told her steps were structural too. She rolled her eyes, but she kept the application confirmation pinned to her fridge. A year after that night in the grocery store, I took her back to Brantley's after closing. Janice let us in because she had a soft spot buried under 17 layers of sarcasm. The lights were dim, the aisles were quiet. The customer service microphone sat on the counter like a dare. Mara saw it and pointed at me. "Don't even think about it." I wasn't. You absolutely were. I pulled a small box from my jacket pocket. Her face changed. No laughter, no teasing, just her hands flying to her mouth the same way they had the first night when I stood under those speakers and chose her in front of everyone. "Mara Ellis," I said, my voice shaking worse than it had over the microphone. "You once said your maybe was a good maybe. It became the best yes of my life." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I love your courage," I said. "I love your stubbornness. I love your terrible coffee opinions and your coupon strategies. I love the way you are gentle without letting the world mistake it for weakness. I love all of you." She was already nodding. "I haven't asked yet," I said, laughing through my own tears. "Hurry up." I dropped to one knee. "Will you marry me?" "Yes," she said. "Yes, Caleb. Get up here." I barely got the ring on before she pulled me to my feet and kissed me in the middle of Brantley's Market, between customer service and self-checkout, in the very place where strangers had tried to make her feel small. This time, the store was empty. No audience, no applause. Just Mara laughing against my mouth, her ring catching the soft overhead light, her beautiful hands holding my face like she had never once been something to hide. And I understood then that love had not erased what happened to her. It had not cured every cruel memory, but it had given us a place to stand together. What would you have done if you saw teenagers mocking someone you cared about for her vitiligo in the middle of a grocery store? Have you ever experienced something similar? Tell your story in the comments. And for those who'd like to be a little closer to us, we've opened memberships where you'll get shorter exclusive stories every week with no ads. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.